All right, guys, here we are talking about the latest 3Teeth album. The album is called Metawar, a Californian metal group. They are industrial metal, they are new metal, I guess we'll have to argue, and most of all, they are definitely super produced metal, really. I mean, this album, going straight into it without holding any punches, is a really nice sounding album. I mean, this is polished to a degree that your friends from another country are going to see this in glowing from the Empire State Building or Eiffel Tower, I guess, because that still exists.
Sure. I'm pretty sure, and they've checked media, but
it sounds good, and it does, like, in the sense that you might not like how it sounds, but you must be impressed with how it sounds, I guess.
Yeah, true, but when like 80% of the songs are electronic synth based, it's pretty good to get a good sound when it's synth based, and even the singing, when the singing is so electronically distorted or added on or modulated, you're also going to get.
All right, so you're going in dry. You're not even holding any punches. Not even going to warm this thing up. You're like, no, you want
about the production.
I think it's immersive in the sense that it really does set up a landscape or a playground you get involved into, because I do feel like it does get you into that whole robots fighting each other and other robots, and there's a very technological feel about this album. And I think that does you well to get in it. And I think with those albums, works to have a super produced album, whereas if you have a certain rawness to that, it would feel like you're cheapening out on the experience. This is fully like, this is Optimus Prime smashing against Megatron. Very slowly. There's no real urgency in this album, but there is some big, heavy clunking of riffs happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're definitely right. The whole album, the tone, the song titles, you can sense there is some sort of like dystopia, end of world. Maybe not men fighting machines, but more so like media control, maybe war happening, and that extent. And you get it with the productions. Like a lot of the electronic effects they use like a continuous wailing or siren sound, I guess, to make you the whole urgency and make you feel like, this is the weight of their song. So they do that well. I won't deny that. The electronics are quite decent.
I'll also say that generally the songs, the way they organically flow is really, really good. They never feel like it's very jarring until the very end of the album with the last couple of tracks. I will definitely say that they tried to gamble and do something different, and it kind of didn't work, unfortunately. I'll talk about those tracks a little later, but generally I found that the swell and the way that the instrumentation would build up, even though being slow and methodical, and lucky for them they did keep the tracks short, or else it would have been very brutal, and not in a good way. It's generally that works in their favor as well, so I did like that. These are as simple grooves as I can imagine that you can put into heavy metal as well. It sounds like the best mnemonic riff that I've ever heard, or the better mnemonic riffs, and just kind of made into songs, and they really revolve around slow guitar riffs that are very much more designed to be catchy and work towards the chorus, which is more memorable and singing along, I guess, to a degree.
Yeah, but the thing you're saying about it's not that jarring because the songs are very simplistic in structure.
They are, but they don't. At least then they keep it going. They don't take me out of the experience too much. The instrumentation used, the electronic equipment, was actually quite good as well, and I was generally happy to hear those guitars playing, even though at times, we'll get into some of the negatives a little bit later, that it could get a little redundant and repetitive because they really were focused into one kind of style and one kind of structure, and key signature wise, tempo wise, time signature wise, it was all very much located into that one thing and just making that one thing really awesome. I also would say that generally the vocalist was a delight to listen to. Generally I thought he was, even though sometimes pushed down in the mix or whatever, he had a lot of cool ideas that worked really well. There's a lot of power, a lot of energy. There's singing, chanting, it's tight. And I think he did really well. He had that Marlon Manson feel at times to a more sinister and uglier feel that worked well in landscape. But unfortunately now I have to abandon what I liked about the album and be one of those nasty negatives as well, Danny.
Well, it's fair.
They do hit hard with grooves and they are set up, but unfortunately that's kind of the gimmick, is that the grooves there's a chorus, Generally, there's a nice bit of like interlude in there somewhere, but that's just song structures for the first 9 tracks. And if you don't like the first track, or it's technically the second track, I think the first track's about
it's instrumental
of nothing, whatever. Just setting up really much the media, flipping through the channels, getting more Dougly and distorted. But then when it first hits, if you do not like that drop, this album is going to be a tough album to listen to. And even if you do love it, I don't know from start to finish that you could really honestly say that this album's fantastic, because it really does one thing, and that's kind of its thing.
Yeah, they try to change it in the way, like, after the second chorus, they'll go into either a kind of breakdown thing or more of just like an instrumental experimentation type area before they go back into the last chorus. So that's kind of the, like, slight subtlety. So they either have a heavy pre-chorus into off-chorus, or like a slow chorus which crescendos out and back into it. So again, it's still a similar song structure, but they're just going with what they feel like, how they set up the start with the intros, how they kind of repeat it into the chorus. So
I will argue though that I think this album would really suit another sensory effect on top. So if you're playing a video game, or you're seeing them live and they put on a really good show with stuff, and they could time things with it as well, like Rammstein would do with fireworks or vibrating dildos, or however else they would go about making sure you're enjoying your time there, shooting foam out of, phallic symbols as well. I do think that would help as well, but listening to the CD, it's just really hard to remember anything after pressing stop, because it really bled into each other so much that it became this one visit in a used tampon commercial. It's kind of bleeds together and it all gets sticky and really gross. But the magic of the studio is sounding really good. It's really good. But again, as well, the similar time signatures, the similar key signatures, the way songs would play out, it's very tried and true methods. And the gambles here, I think, mostly with what the instrumentation was in the electronic sense, because I don't hear much of that in other forms, in conventional metal. But an industrial metal band is fairly conventional, I guess, in today's world. But at least these guys had their taste on it, their swing on it. I just wanted something else apart from that slow groove. What about something in a death metal triple-y feel? What about something a little bit more faster, some blast beats just chucked in for 3 seconds, like what, I know Symphony X did that with one track. They did that quick thing with
Kiss of Fire.
Just something like that. Nemec do a lot of that stuff. That's what I like to hear within the bands in industrial metal. Do something other than just your slow methodical, and that's when I mentioned bands like Nemec, or even more importantly, Cybreed. If you want an industrial metal band that grooves but also gives you something a little bit more than that, they're a great band to check out. This was a little tricky now to get into it, because the first 9 tracks sound the same, and when they tried to gamble, like the last 3 tracks, and then particularly there was one that I thought, I think it was Blackout, that was very much like a Marlon Manson feel, and it started so really nice, but then after the first half it gets derailed, they hit the chorus, it just kind of stumbles a bit, and it's like, all right, now the song's been abandoned, that interesting start. It wasn't like a callback to that goth scene in the 80s, this track, but it was abandoned and that was it,
I think they're trying to build up to try to crescendo that song. It feels like track 12 as kind of the prelude to track 12. It seems like they kind of try to tie into those together to make it some sort of battle or some sort of...
The groove after the second chorus was cool in the fall, but again, it was just a song that wasn't doing it, and it was a little too formulaic even for this band, that track, and obviously the last track being Pumps Up Kicks is a cover song, so... Yeah. Which really stinks of the label. This really felt then that the label said you got to put a cover song, because we talked about Five Finger Death Punch and all that, and they got 2 on their albums, Disturbed and all that. You can really feel that that was doing it. So maybe these guys are forced to play safe a little bit too, because they are tied to Century Media, and that could be to their detriment, because I like to hear these guys far more... Yeah, just a lot more, take a few more gambles with it. And either push into more of a metal thing, or abandon that more and go into that 80s gothy kind of thing as well. But it got stuck in between the whole lot, pretty much.
They relied on that strong tone and strong rock groove, which does sound great, but not all the time. It's only 46 minutes, take away the covers, 42 minutes album. And look, the only other time they tried to do something different was track 6, which I think it's called Altar. It's kind of pronounced weird spelling. And they tried to do that methodic song where they're just all of it's a bit more slower and a bit more like poignant
Yeah.
singing and all that to make it trying to offset a bit. And that's
Yeah.
good. Good on them for trying something different. Like, that one
Yeah.
actually stuck out because it was so
It
different.
is, yeah, exactly.
But then apart from that, the rest of it was the same. Yeah, right. And I think the track 11, 12, it sounded a bit too different as well.
Yeah.
You know, it just sounded like, I think they were trying to create like a storytelling song.
I think for a commercial though, viability. If you want to get your friends in from dance music, this could be an album to get them into because it has a lot of that style, mostly of not so much dance though. It's more the heavier stuff.
Just electronic feel.
Yeah,
to
that
it all,
electronic
man.
feel
Yeah.
and stuff
So
like
they're not
that.
too scared. It's something familiar. It's like, here, this
Yeah.
has electronics to it. Oh, yeah.
So that's good. They're singing it and stuff. So it
Yeah.
kind of feels like the Slipknot version of a medium pace dance thing. So it's the thing about it. When I heard it was from California, it's like this all makes sense. It's like seeing someone, like seeing the opposite gender, all the same, whatever. It's all good. Super hot because you're in California, right? They got the most attractive people in the world there, apparently, right? But it's like someone that from there that didn't go to high school or they just tried to make a living off their looks alone. So when you go to talk to them, it's like there's not enough depth to it. But goddamn, if you're not impressed by the way they feature themselves on the front of magazines and stuff,
The cover album was good.
Yeah, exactly. And this stinks of it. This is like super good to when you first hear it and stuff. But sticking in this thing too long, I think you really start to just kind of get a familiar of the same. And eventually, I think you'd want something with a little bit more substance.
Pretty clever there, man. You could credit that. Yeah.
You're welcome, Danny. I'm glad that when you heard the album, that resonated with you.
True. I mean, talk about like overly produced type thing. Like the cover art was quite well produced. Like the electronic, robotic hand holding the Earth, which had Merrickmore and like I guess oil coming from the fingers and digging into the Earth.
That's clever.
That was clever. It probably suits the tone of the album and fits the song lyrics. I've read them all. And that's fine. So that's done well, and it was nice colours, nice bold colours, kind of reflects the album. So I'll give credit to that. That was done quite, and that matched. But you're right. I think what you said that quite well. It's like the depth is kind of missing. Yeah, but people who like this stuff might not want depth.
Yeah, I do like songs though. I think American Landfill, Time Slave, and Sell Your Face. I think if you're going to check out any tracks, do that. This album would have done better, I think, if it came as an EP and you got like the 5 or 6 best tracks and just kind of threw it out there. The album just completely drops off the radar towards the end of it. They just don't know what they were going to do. I think it was the last 3 tracks or whatever happened. But in the end, Danny, an album that super sounds. I think checking out a track is all you're going to have to need. They got a single out as well, so go check that out on YouTube. The production for this film clip, I mean, especially for not only the film clip but the build up for it. I couldn't leave YouTube without seeing this film clip come out as well for the track. So they obviously got money to spend. They're not worried about it. Back in the day, I think they used to outsource their guitarists, get someone to write for them or whatever. But now they got someone locked in.
California money.
Yeah, California money. So, Danny, what are your final thoughts of the album before we review it? Give it a rating out of 10.
Yeah, no, I thought what you said is good. I said it's kind of like a similar tone and feel repeated throughout most of the song. It's kind of like one track and they cover that same track for a lot of it. Only slight variations in like where they put the emphasis in the song itself, and then 1 or 2 of the tracks are slightly different. Like track 6 and the last 2 are a bit different. Yeah, trying to be unique, and that's fine. Good on them for trying something different. Yeah, track 6 I thought kind of did a good job with it. Tracks 11 and 12 not so much. Yeah. So I mean, again, if you like the style, you like the industrial sound, you probably will like this album because it has a lot of electronic influences. It has a nice rock groove feel to it. Very unoffensive, nothing too technical with it. Yeah. So if you like that, that's
it's a great bridge band. I know if you're into the new metal, this is the new metal of the future. Like literally, it's like someone took those riffs and just made them, like distorted them and put a thing on it. And the end of the day, after this song, that 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave it like a 5.5, 6 because it's just not enough for it to be considered a whole album.
What's great is it's lesson in production. This thing sounds phenomenal in the sense that it has a great tone to it, and the way it all works in its well, it really does sound like its own world and landscape. It's just, again, when I was in it too long, I just got a little bored and I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember any riff that grabbed me or anything because it really felt like one cool riff or raw tone that they loved, and they just basically used it and abused it so much that it became a shadow of itself and unrecognizable to even me.
Well, and in the words of 3Teeth, I am the old flesh in progressive disguise. With my pretty eyes, I hide all their lies. Not bad.
sum that up. Well, with that, I hope you guys liked our take on 3Teeth. If you enjoyed the album, make sure you check it out on the old YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, Megadata is the name of it. So with that,
Metawar.
Metadata. Yeah, they took up a lot of my metadata, downloading the Metawar.
Thanks for this conversation, man.
I'm Super Metal Brother Matt.
I'm Super Brother Dane.
We're going to Super Metal Brothers. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you all next week.